March meeting to order. All 7 trustees are present. If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the American and to the Texas flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance
To thee,
to Texas,
one
state
state,
under God,
one and indivisible. For our public forum, we have one citizen that has signed up, Tasha Fennell, and her agenda item is on race demographics. You may have 3 minutes to speak, and we will keep track of the time. Thank you.
Sounds good. Hi, good evening. My name is Tasha Fennell. I am a parent of 2 students within the San Marcos School District, and I'm here because I just have a question. So, as the year goes on, I can't help but notice and wonder about the color representation within our schools. So today my question is, what is the student to teacher, or vice versa, teacher to student, basis of race and ethnicity on each of our campuses, right? How many of your staff who directly work with our students are of color? Specifically, I am asking about Black, but I am also interested in all colors of our educators within the school, within the schools. And my last question is, how many of your classrooms have just one Black student enrolled or scheduled per period? I want to thank you for your time. I look forward to hearing back about the data or the demographics within our schools, and let me know how to handle or how I can find the information, or if it's already posted somewhere and I have access to it and I'm not sure how to do that. So I look forward to hearing back from someone in regards to that particular topic of the race and ethnic demographics within the San Marcos School District. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Cantu?
Yes.
I know we can't engage the conversation at the moment because we're not agendized for this, but would it be appropriate for the superintendent to refer to material that he has presented previously, like last month?
yes. And I can call Ms. Fennell. I have her number.
We're ready for our superintendent's report.
Madam President, members of the board, thank you. Good evening to everybody, our worldwide fans watching. Just want to take a moment to, it's good to be back in person. That's number one. I think we can all agree having kids back in the building is the most beneficial thing we could do, and we're doing that, I think, safely. But I do want to take a moment to thank a few people in particular. Most of you know that we started vaccinating our own staff last week, and that's really because Mr. Wozniak, Diana Eastwood, who's our high school nurse and kind of acts as the head nurse for the district, and then all the other nurses that participated, and then Mr. Andrew Fernandez, who really were diligent in aggressively communicating with the county about the need to vaccinate our staff members, and things I think fell in line. The president came out with his statement, and the governor came out, and everything just kind of fell in place. And then Wednesday afternoon, they were able to secure the 500 vaccines. And we, over 2 days, Diana Eastwood, HR, teaching, learning, and assessment kind of shifted. We semi-closed central office down to run our own vaccination site, which was handled with extreme professionalism. So I just wanted to thank them because they made it happen. We are getting ready to do round 2. We'll get another 500, and so we hope to not only take care of the staff, but also then kind of become a semi-county site for others. And so that would be, I think, a benefit not only to our kids and staff and families, but to the community as well. and I don't know how else to say, just we're grateful for their diligence and for their work this past couple of days. Also want to take a moment to thank, while all this is going on, our Diamond Line is, they're performing over this past weekend, and they were declared state champions, and I think they were competing against like Clark, Johnson out of Haste, and other schools. So I think they did really well. Not a lot of people recognize our powerlifting team. We had 6 young ladies who went to Elgin to participate in powerlifting, and yes, it is a sport. And 5 of the 6 qualified to go to state, and so they will be going in 2 weeks to Corpus Christi for state championship. And we have the possibility of a couple state champions. And so thank you to the coaches and the families that have trusted us with them. And really my last message is to the community. It's just to everybody to de-stress over spring break. The last year has been, I think, different, stressful for everyone. We appreciate the community having the grace with our teachers that they've had. And I think when you hear some of the damage across the state, and you hear, the adjusters who are working with us for our issues say that, wow, you have kids in the building still. You're the only district, to my knowledge, that actually keeps kids in the building while you're addressing issues. I think makes it feel good that our people are doing right by the kids and the families. And so I wanted to thank all the staff members who have made that possible, the teachers who have hung in there, and hopefully, as I've said before, there's a little less anxiety, and we can all see a little bit more light through the dark forest coming. So just have a great spring break and rest and relax, and we'll come back for the wonderful state assessments that are lying ahead of us. So, and that's it, Madam President. That's all that I have for the.
Thank you very much. Well, we're going to move into a closed session as authorized by Section 551.071 and 551.074 of the Texas Government Code. Discussion regarding Director of Transportation and discussion regarding SMCISD District 1 trustee. So we will reconvene when we are done in executive session. closed session. And we will consider action regarding the Director of Transportation.
I move that we approve Ryan Hall as the new Director of Transportation.
I'll second.
Ms. Hanson moves that we accept the recommendation for the Director of Transportation. Mr. Arredondo seconds. All in favor? 7. All opposed? 0. B, possible action regarding SMCISD Trustee, District 1. I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Arredondo to make a statement.
Thank you, Ms. Cantu, colleagues of the board. First and foremost, I want to thank you all for your respect and collegiality as I respond to the events surrounding my arrest on February 18th. And after discussions with my colleagues in closed session, I am voluntarily stepping down from my role on the ISD's Central Office Subcommittee per our deliberations in executive session as a sanction due to my violation of board operating procedures. Thank you.
Just a point of information, there is limited things that the board can consider when a student violates, a trustee violates the operating procedures, and that was discussed, and that is why we came to this conclusion. Any other comment from any trustee? Thank you. We will continue reports, information, items, construction update. Mr. Sandoval?
Let me get it set up here. Okay, good evening, Board President Cantu, Board of Trustees, Mr. Cardona. I'll be presenting the March construction update. First thing, as we always start, we look at the budget. As I mentioned last month, a couple of weeks ago, we closed out the Goodnight Middle School project and saw a savings of about $300,000, which increased our overall savings as compared to last month. We're still trending between $4 and $5 million each month on estimated savings. We don't see that moving very much from that. Of course, we still got 2 big projects in the works, but we'd look to see that number to remain consistent. We're going to look at Miller Middle School. Regarding the schedule, a couple of weeks ago, the last presentation, we talked about getting this project back on track. We did lose 5 days due to the weather. However, when Weber provided me their schedule, phase 1, which was almost, as you can see there, 30 days from the last estimated completion date which they provided, which was April 23rd. As you can see now, they're targeting May 21st. Now that is a final punch list date, so we still have the ability to move staff in, move furniture in, which is going to be very challenging. So we're in the process of thinking that through because it is so close to the end of the school year. Do we want to do that? The challenge is, and my concern is phase 3A, and that's the return to school in the fall, which I fully expect we're going to be 100% with students back in the buildings. At least that's what I'm hoping. So, but it's a domino effect, right? We can't start some part of phase 3A until we get people moved into phase 1. So, we did have a meeting last Friday. We did get into specifics with Bartlett, understanding the impacts to the campuses for the phase 1 and phase 3A, the current completion dates as reflected there on the slide. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually have the ability to move some folks in early into phase 1. that's going to allow them to get into Phase 3A. Now, 3A is labs, it's maker spaces. It's going to be minimal displacement for staff and students. So there's no serious impact, as you'll see, like at what we're going through at De Zavala. So there's no movement other than we won't maybe have access to those labs initially when school starts. But I'll continue to update the board, admin, and the campus as we work through this schedule. Once again, my number one goal since I took over the role is to make sure that we offer as little disruption, inconvenience to the campus, and the schedule is something that we look at constantly. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ann.
I have a question about, oh, sorry. I have a question after you're done with Miller.
Okay. Some of the items that we've completed, when you see the word glazing, that just means windows. So if you go by the campus, you'll see Area D, which is the admin. The windows have been installed. The ceiling grid installation in Area F, which is the band hall, plumbing, all restrooms, and drip pan replacement in HVAC units. Just to comment on that, so one thing that we've done is involve our district maintenance folks throughout the project. And I felt it was important because once Weber leaves, the project is completed, we're there to maintain it. So in this particular issue, on one of the observation reports that the project architect provides us, we noticed that they had run some electrical conduit too close to the air conditioner units. So we asked them to go back and move those. And we also asked them to change out drip pans so we'd have better access once we had to maintain those once the project was done. So just looking after our folks in the future as they look to maintain those units once everything's done. Some items over the next 30 days, you can see there, Area F, we're going to get windows done. If they're not done today, they'll be done this week over in the band hall. A lot of tiling work. I'll show you in some photos here in a little bit. And we expect to get the elevator delivered and installed over the next couple of weeks. The photo on the left shows what I just talked about, Area D, which is the glazing, the windows, and then a shot of the entryway. And then the ceiling grid and the admin and libraries in place. And then some of the admin offices also have lights in place as well as a ceiling grid. The photo on the left is looking, if you're standing at the middle of the library and looking out towards the entry, the top floor is the parent liaison office and the bottom will be the librarian office. And then the picture on the right probably doesn't do it justice because it's a white wall with white tile, but it does show all the wall tile that's been completed on the second floor in the admin building. Any questions?
Yeah, so, Mr. Sandoval, I think that you were not yet here when we had this conversation previously. So when we were originally considering the design specs for the Miller project, there was another potential phase to the project that encompassed the athletic facilities, the locker rooms, et cetera, et cetera. When we reviewed that at the time, it was still early in the entire bond project, so we made the determination not to proceed with that part of the project because we didn't know yet what our savings or expenses would be from the overall project. Now that we have a better sense of the costs, I would really like the board to re-review that and have you weigh in and get your assessment on, the feasibility of that. Because my concern then and my concern continues to be that I don't want us to get to a point where, oops, we're too late. We've passed the point at which doing this is reasonable and feasible. We've got the whole site, everything's finished. It's all the checklists are done. Now we have to start all over, right? I don't want us to get to that point. I want us to make the determination to finalize that with all of the information at hand so that we're making it.
Sure. I completely understand that, and I think I've maybe mentioned this before, is I think where we're at with the other two projects, I'd like to get further along before we figure out how much money we're going to have left of the bond. And at that point, and I've got a list in my office, I call it a menu of options, things around the district that we can do with bond money. Of course, part of that is having the attorneys come in, educate y'all on what we can do with that bond money, and then at that point, turning it over to y'all to say, what do we want to do? What, in terms of importance. And I'll have some feedback. I mean, I'll let you know what I think, but ultimately it'll be up to y'all to make that decision.
And when would you determine that you think that the board could consider
I think by the May, June we will have a good idea of where we're going to fall expense-wise with the two projects. They're set to be completed in August. So at that point, we'll be able to come in and make a presentation or give y'all some items to consider.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Arredondo, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Cantu. I just wanted to express my agreement with Trustee Halsey. Mr. Sandoval, I know when the bond was being formed, one of the things that we talked about consistently was ensuring that both of our middle schools offered the same type of facilities and programming. And a unique challenge with our Goodnight campus being the former San Marcos High School is it was built out like a high school, 5A high school at the time too. So anything that we can do now to have those conversations of ensuring equitable facilities at both of our middle school campuses and making sure, like Ms. Halsey said, that we don't pass that point of no return where
Sure.
we're actually tearing down infrastructure that we just put into place, I'm very interested in as well.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Oh, I'm not going to be here for that. I might as well tell y'all what I think. I mean, I've had a child that's just about to exit Miller, and with this year aside, I think with the improvements, it's a fantastic middle school facility. It wasn't a former high school, doesn't have some of the things that Goodnight has, but it has not impeded his development academically or athletically in the least. And the committee that we put together to identify needs did not identify athletic facilities at Miller as a high priority. So I think this would be stepping out of the authorization we had, and there is no savings. This is interest money. We put the bond money in a savings account. We earned some interest on it while we paid interest out of a different pocket to the bondholders. So it's just an accounting trick that makes it look like savings, and so I don't think spending it is a wise option. But as I said, y'all will be able to wait me out and vote on this in May or June, and I will only read about it in the paper. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Anyone else? Let's continue.
Okay, so let's jump into De Zavala Elementary School. They too, Bartlett Cock, actually, they lost 6 days due to weather. But according to them, there's no impact to the schedule. They're confident that they can make up the time. They're still looking at an end of year completion for the library, which is phase 3. And if you look into 3B, we've completed the gym lights. The areas that I've highlighted. Next week during spring break, and then you've heard me talk about working ahead, right? So next week during spring break, we're going to do some asbestos abatement in the 4th and 5th grade hallway. And we work closely with the campus and child nutrition. We're going to be turning over the kitchen to Bartlett for the rest of the year. A temp wall will be constructed that'll separate the kitchen construction area and the cafeteria. Meals will be prepared at Goodnight Middle School, and they will be served in the cafeteria. The cafeteria staff at DZ has been great and flexible. They've agreed to this. Like I said, we've run it through the campus. And I think by doing this, we're not going to run into an issue with that August 20th date. And like I mentioned earlier, the difference between Miller and De Zavala is if we're not ready August 20th, then we're talking about having 2 wings of classrooms we're going to have to find room for, and we can't do that. And like I said earlier about having students back, fully expect to be 100%. So we had to get them in early. Like I said, we've reviewed it with child nutrition, we've reviewed it with the campus, and it's something we feel we can get done. So,
Okay.
looking at some of the items that got completed, you can see we've demoed exterior walls, and probably it's best that I show you the pictures because I can explain them better. But that picture on the left was just last month. So that wall where the door is has been demoed, and as of last week, that's what the exterior wall now looks like. And this is a picture of both sides. So the pictures on the left was in January, and then all that area will be labs leading into the new library. And then interior framing, as you can see, that's a photo if you're standing in the library looking back towards the labs. And then we've got some decorative panels and campus lettering as you enter the campus. And that's it for De Zavala, and that's it for the construction update for March.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sandoval.
You bet.
We're moving into the approval of consent items. Approval of minutes for regular scheduled board meeting on February 22nd and special call meeting on March 1st, 2021.
I move that we approve as presented.
I second.
Moved by Ms. Hanson and seconded by Ms. Mejia. Any discussion or questions on the minutes? All in favor, please raise your hand. 7, opposed, 0. B, consider approval of resolution of the San Marcos Consolidated Independent School District Board of Trustees regarding emergency closure due to dangerous weather. Were you going to speak on this?
Oh, I mean, that's why they're in consent. I figured we had to close because of a snowstorm, and so these next 3 items really are just the waivers to cover that we did what was right for our students and staff.
So should we take all 3 together then?
I have a question also.
Oh, question?
I'll make a motion. Okay, I'll move that we approve consent agenda items B, C, and D as presented by the administration.
And a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Hanson seconds. And questions or discussion?
Mr. Superintendent, so I understand the necessity for this, and I wanted to commend and applaud all of the district employees and your leadership for safely navigating us through that treacherous time. And, you know, on top of what we've already been going through, to have that thrown at everybody, it was just, you know, may this all be over soon. But I appreciate your leadership, and I appreciate the staff, and I know that there were people going out onto the dangerous roads to ensure the safety of our students and our families, and so yeah, my gratitude for that. But I just wanted to verify that that these actions do not change the calendar, that we will still be having the last day of school as scheduled, because I know there's some question about that.
Correct. This allows us to keep the same exact schedule for students and staff.
Thank you.
And y'all sent that out to parents already, that it's, the schedule remains the same. I think it was something you sent out, because that's where I read.
I think a lot of people read real fast sometimes, and so I just wanted to make sure that we all understood that it is
It is
not
still the
changing.
same
Thank
final
you.
date. We call for the vote. All in favor? 7, opposed, 0. Items for action. Consider approval of Bonham tuition rate.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Mr. Superintendent. I presented in the board book some information as requested from our agenda prep meeting last Monday, including our current enrollment numbers, number of students eligible for sunset after school care, number of eligible students attending after school care, and then number of tuition students. We had 10 students who are eligible utilizing that after school care, and none of our tuition students at this time. Then further down into that information, I provided area childcare providers that are also Rising Star. They meet the Rising Star criteria, which means they are licensed and certified to provide instruction, like a preschool. And so I gave a summary there of surrounding area tuition and some additional information, such as if they have after-school costs, that type of thing. Wonder World is actually Wonderland School. Sorry. And then beyond that, I also gave you information about surrounding districts and their pre-K programs, and compared our tuition to those surrounding area tuitions if they offer tuition programs. Many of the surrounding districts do not offer tuition programs. And are there any questions about that information that I can answer for you?
Ms. Halsey?
So thank you. I appreciate getting all of this comprehensive information and the update on this issue. As I said previously, I'm always concerned that we are making this program, which I think is really a wonderful thing that we have in the district. It's available to as many students as possible. But I didn't see that there's a recommendation from administration in terms of the tuition. So when I looked at the tuition, I was happy to see, that we are priced super competitively, comparatively. I also realized that it's been a long time since I had a preschooler, but I'm over that, mostly. So I'm glad to see where we are in alignment, and so that alleviates some of my concern. I think, unfortunately, it's still probably prohibitive for some people, but can you explain to me what the administration recommendation is, and then also how a person qualifies for the after-school care stipend? Is that through the career services? What's the eligibility for that?
For an after-school stipend, that I don't know. I don't have that information. I'm not sure that we.
In finding out, is that through the rural capital area program that they get the after?
Oh, yes, correct. It would be if
Okay.
a family that's participating in rural capital.
Then they get the after school. Because even with the after school, our rate is lower than all of the other
Correct.
programs. So what's the recommendation for the tuition?
I was looking to see in the board book what I could refer you to, and I think my actual action item didn't make it into the book unless it was just missing from mine. So if you're
None of us have it.
Okay.
You've got just the charts on the information and the comparisons. And, it makes me think that maybe you're going to stay with the 390, or did you have a different recommendation?
Well, the recommendation that I put in, which I think we can send to you here shortly, the recommendation I made was just to consider the surrounding area tuition rates. Last year, we recommended that we stay at the 390. It has been a very long time since we have adjusted the rates. I think since in March 2015 is when we approved that. We approved a higher rate, actually. It was $5,040 per student in 2015. In March 2016, we reduced the rate to $3,900 per student. And it has been at that rate from 2016 through March 2020. So as far as the exact amount, I hesitate to name an amount, but I do think it's time to consider maybe raising that rate a little bit.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Mr. Dre, do we have more applicants than students we accept into the paid side of the pre-K?
No, at this point, we have not had to turn students away. This year, of course, has been an anomaly. But last year, we had our largest amount of tuition-based students. I think we capped out at about 85, and not because we closed enrollment for tuition students, but that's just where we landed. We, at that point, when our enrollment was at its highest, year before this, we were very close to being at capacity for the building.
I see. And is there I'm always worried when the government like us subsidizes a product that the demand might outstrip the supply, and then there's not a mechanism to fairly distribute the product, right? So do we have something in place for what happens if you suddenly get more applications than seats? Is it a lottery? Is it a first come, first serve? How does it work?
Yeah, we do not have a mechanism for that because there hasn't been a need for one yet. Proactively, I do think it's time that we put something in place so that we're not having to figure that out should that need arise. So again, I would research the other districts that do have tuition and how they manage that. I know San Antonio does a lottery system, but we would need to do some more research around that.
Thank you.
So on the form that didn't get in the book, what was your recommendation?
I simply said, consider local and surrounding pre-kindergarten and preschool program information in determining SMCISD pre-kindergarten tuition rate for 21-22.
So you didn't give us a number.
No.
All right, Mr. Redondo, and then Ms. Halsey.
So, Ms. Dre, personally, in my opinion, although I agree with Trustee Halsey that this is a very competitive, if not extremely affordable compared to private providers, it doesn't escape me the fact that the state only funds us half-day pre-K and the school district,
Face the other
based
half.
on board direction and vote and financing, has expanded that to full day, and then also the 22 to 1 full-time classroom teacher and 1 full-time teacher's assistant as well. So obviously, the ISD is heavily subsidized with local tax dollars, our bond and pre-K program. And time again, every year, I still hear from folks who aren't in those qualifying categories for the eligibility for the free pre-K program. So I understand that your recommendation came with no monetary amount. Individually, I am still interested in trying to make that monthly fee even more affordable, because we know it's the folks who are in the middle, right, who are always left out of these types of programs, right? As if you're on government assistance, then a lot of these free programs are available to you already, but it's the folks who miss those types of safety nets already who do not have access to this. And $300 a month for some folks is a car payment or a rent payment. And so providing full day pre-K, high quality pre-K, I might add, after visiting your campus again, I just want us to endeavor to try and make that program more accessible. Because for me, it just doesn't sit right that we're already financing a majority of our pre-K program with local tax dollars, but it does come at a fee for taxpayers and residents who do not qualify
Correct.
for it to be free. So thank you. I know that doesn't make a decision here tonight. Actually is advocating to move in the other direction, but that's where I am with pre-K, because it is a phenomenal program. I wish more of our children have access to.
Thank you.
Ms. Halsey?
So I am sympathetic to both Trustee Arredondo's and Trustee McLaughlin's points. And I would love to see us have that mechanism in place. And I would love to see us have, an excess of demand. I think that would be, wonderful were we to get there. And I think we were headed in that direction last year before this happened. I am not in favor of a rate increase at all. I think we get additional, just a bit of a correction to what Mr. Arredondo said. I think we get more state dollars now for the full time than we were because of the last legislative session, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's not direct,
Last time we
but-
looked at the budget, it wasn't a direct through line.
Correct.
But that there were these monies set aside that really do go to pre-K, so that we're not funding as much locally as we had been, which we certainly had been for years,
Correct.
funding a large portion of it. So I'm not in favor of an increase. I would certainly, if administration had ways of decreasing it, I would favor that. I think this seems like a really opportune time to find a public-private partnership. I think we've touched on this before, like finding, a company in town looking for tax credits or something that we could try, or sponsoring places. I think that would be great. But I also think we have to be realistic about next year is going to be a rebuilding year in many ways across the district for families, for kids, and I want as many kids back in that preschool as possible come August. And so I'm not willing to entertain an increase at this point, at least for the next year.
Understood.
Ms. Hanson?
Ms.
Oh,
Mejia.
did you have a hand up? Ms. Mejia?
Okay, so my understanding is that the minimum is $390.
Correct.
Okay, so I do agree with Trustee Arredondo. That is $10 less than my car note. That's pretty pricey in my opinion, and I would love for it to be lowered. And then another thing. So I would like tuition rates for Haste and Lockhart. It says that you're awaiting response to requests for information. Did you try calling today?
Yeah, so they don't offer tuition.
Okay.
So, correct. They offer free pre-K as the state requires for families who qualify.
Okay, So is that for all of them, as in Haste, Lockhart, and San Antonio?
Let's see, Hayes, Lockhart. Yes, I received a response from San Antonio, and I'm going to have to double check what that response was. Off the top of my head, I don't believe they offer the tuition-based program, but the others' responses were that they do not offer that.
Okay. So next time, bring those numbers.
Is this something we need to determine today, or can it be part of the budget process so we know, whether we keep it the same or reduce it, how it's gonna impact
The rest of the
the
budget.
rest of the budget? Because I don't wanna have to cut here to,
Make up, and then have to make it up somewhere else.
right. I'm concerned about that, so if we could, if it can be delayed a little bit, I know you'd like it as soon as possible, but,
And we do have a budget workshop coming up pretty quick.
I think the only timeline issue is being able to communicate with the families who are involved and giving them plenty of time if there were a change in decision. As far as the budget impact, you can see of the 18 families at the current rate, it isn't significant considering the cost of the program, and we do underwrite pretty much all of it.
right.
So if the board wants to take some time to study this further, that's fine. But the reason it was brought tonight is so that we could provide information to the families for next year. I believe they're starting, it's not my expertise, but I believe they're starting to register their students for next year in the next month.
John's next. Mr. McLaughlin?
Yeah, I'll take a crack at making a motion that we leave the tuition the same. It works out to $390 a month for the Bonham pre-K paid program, and that the district administration establish a lottery system for any overflow applications received prior to August 1st.
I'll second that motion. Any further discussion or questions? Mr. Arredondo, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, I agree with Trustee Hampton that if this could be a part of a larger budget discussion, obviously this does come at great cost to the district. And just to clarify, I'm in favor of this investment at Bonham Pre-K. That isn't my point, but I'm looking at it even becoming more cost affordable, and so that would be potentially a rate decrease. And so I'll be voting against this move.
Ms. Halsey?
So as I said, I would like to see the price go down even further, but I am going to support this because I do know that there are people right now looking for preschool options. People are ready to sign their kids up. They're having conversations across the district about that, and I want to make sure that people know that Bonham will be open and this is what they can expect, and that we go ahead and make that available.
Call for the vote. All in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? 2, 5, 2.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Dre. Consider resolution to approve contract for depository services. And right now, we have the proposed recommendation is for Frost Bank.
Ms. Cantu,
Yes, Mr. Arredondo?
motion that the district approve the contract for depository services based on the administration's recommendation.
I'll second. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? Abstain?
Abstains.
Mr. McLaughlin abstains. So it was 6 and 1 abstention. Consider approval of the first amended and restated agreement to provide joint funding for the provision of youth services.
Ms. Cantu?
Mr. Arredondo?
Yes, I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the administration's recommendation for continued youth services funding at the new date of 2023 as presented.
I second.
Mr. Arredondo moves on the motion and Ms. Mejia seconds. Questions or discussion? Anyone?
I just,
Ms. Halsey?
Mr. Superintendent, could you just let us know for the purposes of people who were not at the agenda prep what this entails, please?
So this is a position that involves an agreement between the City of San Marcos, Haste County, Texas State University, and the district to fund a position. So the city is picking up a large portion of it, and each of the other subdivisions are picking up $5,000. And initially, the position was filled last year, and the person held the position for about a week. And so and then had to resign for health reasons. And so they wanted this to reflect a 2-year commitment that we had all agreed on. And they felt like 6 months going by, it really wasn't going to be effective. And so everybody agreed to start, and they have since hired someone who started on January 21st, I believe, Crystal Lopez. And so they want the agreement to be from 2 years from that date so that we have some effectiveness overseeing if the position actually makes a difference.
Mr. Superintendent, do we pay any money for the prior time?
No, so it's the $5,000, I think, is what our commitment.
Okay,
I don't think they'd actually paid I don't think
Okay.
anything had been paid.
it says in the agenda item, the anticipated cost to Core 4 partners remains at a not to exceed amount of $20,000 per year?
Yeah, so the city's covering, I believe, 50,000, yeah. And then we're the 4 covering, that's
Okay.
the $5,000.
Any further questions or comments? Call for the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ms. Mejia, you have your hand up. 5, 6. Okay. 6 opposed. 1 opposed.
I move that we adjourn.
I second.
Ms. Hanson moves that we adjourn. Ms. Halsey seconds. All in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Thank you very much.